back to this video. I thought I'd briefly touch on a subject that I was thinking about a while back, and it's a subject that seems to be in the news quite a bit over the last few weeks. That subject is Trump's so-called big lie, which is a term that some people use for his claim that the 2020 election was stolen from him. Trump's claim of a stolen election is galvanizing many on the right to not only rally around him, but to even consider taking action in his defense and perhaps find a way to bring him back into power. In fact, those efforts to restore Trump to power are still a concern for intelligence services. Just recently, Homeland Security Intelligence Chief John Cohen stated that online rhetoric is now strikingly similar to the buildup to the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol, with increasing calls for violence linked to conspiracy theories about the election. In addition, we're constantly hearing about the audit in Arizona run by Cyber Ninjas, a company, by the way, with zero experience in actually conducting election audits. The company's CEO, a gentleman named Doug Logan, is a very outspoken conspiracy theorist who not only already believes that Biden stole the election, but has also appeared in at least one QAnon film promoting that same idea. It's fair to say that Cyber Ninjas likely went into their audit convinced that election fraud had happened, and it was their job to find it. Whenever the results are released, we can be sure that they will find what they were looking for one way or the other. This week we also saw the Cyber Symposium, an event run by Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy. Despite his many promises that bombshell evidence proving election fraud would be released at his conference, nothing of the sort ever materialized. But that really doesn't matter to those who believe that massive fraud occurred, as the goalposts will simply be moved again, and a new date will emerge for the bombshell evidence to be revealed or for Trump to be restored to the White House. In addition to these organized efforts to call into question the results of the 2020 election, there are also many smaller, more localized attempts to muddy the waters, including numerous threats against local election officials. The one constant in all of these attempts to overturn the election, besides a love for Donald J. Trump, is the presence of QAnon and the convoluted theories that anons are spreading among those who are involved in these efforts. We should remember that chief among QAnon's beliefs is that Donald J. Trump is a hero and that he needs to be supported in every way. All in all, these many attempts to call into question the results of the 2020 election are, at a bare minimum, serving to give Trump's fanatical following a reason to stay passionate about restoring him to power. Millions and millions of people believe that they have a reason to fight, and their fight is for Trump. Because of this, Trump's politically deadly wound will be healed in the near future, and he will indeed return to power. It's just a matter of how he does it. Beyond these efforts to overturn the 2020 election and the craziness of QAnon, I want to talk about whether Trump's big lie is the very same lie that we read about in 2 Thessalonians. The verses I'm referring to read, "And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they might all be damned who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness." I must first point out that those who refer to what Trump is saying as the big lie are either Democrats, the mainstream media, or, generally speaking, anyone who is not a fan of Donald J. Trump. That list is rather long and includes the so-called never-Trumpers, rhinos, and other traditional Republicans who are repulsed by the type of man Trump is or outraged by what he has done and continues to do to the GOP. This anti-Trump crowd can see that Trump has no regard for the truth, and they take a skeptical view of his claims of election fraud, especially in light of the absence of evidence. To them, it's all a big lie. But it's interesting to see that it's the liberal Christians, the non-Christians, and even the atheists who are far more likely to see Trump as the dishonest and vile man that he is, whereas conservative Christians have mostly rallied around and defended him. A strong delusion indeed. But here's where it gets a bit tricky. Although no supporter of Trump would ever refer to his statements as a big lie, almost all of them know full well that Trump famously and notoriously plays fast and loose with the truth, and he has a well-deserved reputation for exaggeration, hyperbole, and outright falsehoods. But apparently they're okay with his dishonesty. Just take a recent CPAC event as an example, where we see Trump acknowledging his own casual relationship with the truth.
You know they do that straw poll, right? Now, if it's bad, I say it's fake. If it's good, I say that's the most accurate poll perhaps ever taken.
Did you notice that the crowd laughed uproariously at Trump admitting he habitually lies? Trump was being honest about his dishonesty, and his supporters found it funny, and that is very sad. They have allowed their outright hatred for those who oppose Trump to delude them into backing a man who has made a career out of casting truth to the ground. No matter what he says or does, they are 100% behind him. Another example of Trump admitting to being purposely dishonest is a quote from the new book, I Alone Can Fix It, Donald J. Trump's catastrophic final year. Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Philip Rucker, co-author of the book, asked Trump why he had lied tens of thousands of times to his supporters and the American people. We asked him why, as president, he thought it was okay for him to constantly tell the American people things that were not true, to lie again and again and again. Trump replied, "You know, there's a beautiful word, and it's called disinformation." Trump may call it disinformation, but it's actually purposeful lying. Trump understands how to manipulate people with what he says. And as Daniel 8:23 tells us, this is exactly what the Antichrist will do. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. But there's a deeper aspect to what Trump is doing. In addition to Trump's reputation for saying things that are simply not true, he is a practitioner of the power of positive thinking, sometimes called magical thinking, as a way to speak things into existence. This power of positive thinking was something that Trump first learned in church, of all places, from the Reverend Norman Vincent Peale. Trump would later claim that Peale told him that he was his greatest student of all time, because, of course, what else would Trump say? Peale's preaching on positive thinking, which he combined with Christianity, laid the groundwork for what eventually evolved into today's prosperity gospel. Practitioners are encouraged to create their own future by controlling what they think and say in the here and now. Those who follow the prosperity gospel mindset are not only of the opinion that God will reward Christians with material things in this world, but that having material success is an outward sign of one's Christian faith. The fatal flaw at the heart of magical thinking, from a Christian perspective, is that one must think and say things which are not true in the hope that they will eventually manifest into one's life at some point in the future. But it gets even darker. Trump's version of the power of positive thinking adds his own extreme narcissism and astounding dishonesty into the mix. We're left with a man who not only looks to create his own future, but who strives to create his own present by deliberately inventing narratives to craft an alternate reality. Despite knowing how exceptionally dishonest he is, Trump's supporters have allowed their hatred of the left, of the media, of those not sufficiently patriotic, or anyone against Trump, to delude them into supporting a man of sin. And lining up behind Trump, no matter what, seems to be what nearly every one of his supporters is willing to do. It simply doesn't matter how dishonest he is, how vile he acts, or what nonsense pours out of his mouth. They are completely behind him. Although, in a way, many Trump supporters are caught between a rock and a hard place. If they dare go against Trump, for any reason, they risk alienating the other pro-Trump people in their lives. This is especially true among politicians, as we've seen in recent months that even justifiable criticism of Trump can result in severe political repercussions. In Trump world, either you completely support Trump in everything, or you're not really on the Trump train. In the alternate universe of Donald J. Trump, the truth simply doesn't matter. In Trump's eyes, the only thing that matters is Trump. What's scary is that many of his supporters are also of the mindset that Trump is the only thing that matters. He matters more than kindness, more than humility, more than simple human decency. I just mentioned that Trump supporters are caught between a rock and a hard place, and it's a reference to Matthew 21:44. And whoever shall fall on this stone shall be broken, but on whomsoever it shall fall, it will grind him to powder. Getting caught between a rock and a hard place can be very dangerous, especially when that rock is Jesus. But let's get back to the original question. Is Trump's big lie the same lie that is mentioned in 2 Thessalonians? To answer this, we should remember to keep all Bible verses in context. That is, we need to compare them to the surrounding text in order to understand their meaning. The answer is clear when we read verse 12, which explains that they all might be damned who believe not the truth. Thus, the lie of verse 11 is contrasted with the truth of verse 12. Certainly, the Bible is not referring to Joe Biden winning the 2020 American election as the truth. So logically, verse 11 is not specifically talking about Trump's claim of election fraud as the lie. Having said that, however, the Bible is clear that one of the major characteristics of the Antichrist is his dishonesty. He cares so little for the truth that he will cast it to the ground as if it was worthless. So if verse 11 isn't referring to Trump's big lie about election fraud, does it refer specifically to one particular lie? If so, what would that lie be? We should note that verse 11 connects the strong delusion to the lie that is believed, and this strong delusion is described as applying to those who rejected truth and had pleasure in unrighteousness. Since the lie in verse 11 is the opposite of the truth in verse 12, we simply need to ask, what does the Bible say the truth is? That answer is easy to find, as in John 17:17, Jesus says, "Sanctify them through thy truth, thy word is truth." So the Bible is telling us that the word of God is truth. Therefore, the opposite of this is that the word of Satan is a lie. Those who reject the word of God will accept the word of Satan. As Jesus said in John chapter 8, verse 44, "Ye are of your father the devil, and the lust of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it." The followers of the Antichrist will, through their own unrighteousness, amplify the lies of the Antichrist. But as the strong delusion begins to take hold, they will start to believe that the Antichrist speaks truthfully about everything and that his word should be accepted as the truth. They will choose the word of the Antichrist over the word of God. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, didn't you just say that many Trump supporters know that he is dishonest but choose to support him anyway? Yes, but this will change. In fact, it is in the process of changing. There is a concerted effort by those around Trump to cast him as the one who speaks the truth, and it's those who are against him that speak the lies. Check out this brief clip of Donald Trump Jr.
I wanted to start with something. What was Donald Trump right about? Everything!
That's right. Trump is right about everything. And this narrative that Trump is right about everything is beginning to take hold among those who support him. Take a look at this quote. "I think I speak for many people in that Trump has never actually been wrong. And so we've learned to trust when he says something that he's not just going to spew something out there that's wrong and not verified." Deborah L., Republican organizer in Michigan. As crazy as it seems, the notoriously dishonest Donald J. Trump is being recast as the purveyor of truth. And this is what 2 Thessalonians is talking about. The strong delusion will cause many to believe a lie, and that lie is that the word of the Antichrist should be believed because he speaks the truth. Those who now rally around Trump are helping him to throw truth to the ground. More than that, those who now accept the lies of the Antichrist as simply a means to an end will soon begin to believe that the Antichrist speaks the truth about everything.